Hello friends, my name is Irene and this is my booktube channel Irene Reads. It was abandoned for almost half a year, even more, but I decided that I want to try to start it over and I want to tell you about some books today. I can't tell you about what I'm reading now and my thoughts about it, and neither can I tell about books that I recently read, because I'm judging this round for Booktube Prize, and so I can't talk about these books until the end of July. But I can talk to you about some books that I've read in winter and spring, so from January until end of May. And I decided to talk about 10 like my favorite books from that period. It's less than half a year, but I think it's okay. We can talk about that 10 books and then we'll talk about books in Booktube Prize. So 10 books I've read this year in chronological order, so I don't know which one is my favorite and I can't talk about this yet. The book I read in January, actually it was the first book I read in this year and it was 5-star read, and this is one of my favorite books this year, so I think it's a victory, was Miss Pettigrew Lived for a Day by Winifred Watson. This is a book written by English author, I think in late 1930s, and this is a charming story about an oldish, like not very young lady who worked as a governess and was definitely not happy with her lonely life. And then she, by accident, by mistake, ended up working in the house of young, charming, flirty, I think, bar singer. And our main protagonist, helps this young lady with her affairs with men and different things that happens with her. And this book is like a glass of champagne. It's very light. It's with sprinkles. I don't know. It's just very lovely and very charming little book. And I highly recommend it to anyone and everyone. And I think the movie adaptation is also very good. The second book I want to talk about is How Much of This Hills is Gold by C.P.M. Zhang. I read this for an octafinals in Booktube Prize, and this is a debut novel by an author living in San Francisco, so I was very interested in reading this. And I think this is a very good debut novel, but you actually can feel that this is a debut novel. It's very raw, it's very emotional, it differs a lot from part to part, and I don't every time know that this was intended. It's like a kaleidoscope, like, I don't know, maybe not a kaleidoscope, like a figure with different sides, and you marvel it. You want to look at it from different sides, but it's not very pleasant all the time, and you can't figure out. I couldn't figure out the whole of this novel. This is novel about two young, let's name them girls, though one of them wants to be a boy. And this is a huge part of the story. Two young siblings that they just lost their parents, and they travel in the Wild West on the gold rush years and try to find, they have a quest to do, and also they try to find their place. They try to understand what they want from life, what our possibilities are, because as you can understand, I haven't said, the main thing in this story is that these two girls are Chinese immigrants. So it's very hard for them to find their place in life and to understand what they can do with their life, especially when one of them wants to be a boy and pretend to be a boy all the time. So this book covers a lot of topics, but I don't know what it does good and what not. So immigration, white privilege, transgender, and also I think like women's story and women lives. I liked this book as a whole, but it was too uneven for me first, and second, there was one plot decision that I didn't enjoy. The only true immigrant in this family was the mother, and she is the only one that we can't hear from. So we do not know her story, and as all other parts of the family, people in the family suffer from and other people thinking about them as an immigrants, and they are not immigrants. They were born in the USA. She was an immigrant, and we know nothing about her. And she is like a mystery in all this novel. And I was not sure, was it intended or not? And if it was intended, I was not sure, do I like this choice or not? So yeah, this was that. But this novel definitely is very memorable. And I think like half a year after, I still think about it. Then the third novel I want to talk about is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. This was my first Daphne du Maurier, and I wanted to start with Rebecca, but this was my book club choice. And I liked it very much. This book was not as straightforward as I thought hearing about it from other booktubers, because, this is a story about a young man whose cousin, who was like his fatherly figure, he went traveling and he was very against all women. He lived alone and he didn't like women at all. And there he wrote a letter that he fell in love and he got married. And then he died during this traveling, and his letters became more and more scattered and panicking. And there was like a thought that his wife damaged him in some way. It was all not very clear. And so our main protagonist, he thinks that this woman is very evil and he tries to find her and punish her, but he couldn't find her. And then she came to his house and she is very lovely and he's scattered with all this, with the difference between her and his opinion about her. And it's all starts from there. And I think this is very nuanced psychological novel, and you can't say, and this is really intentional, author don't make us feel this or that about every character. Author gives us a freedom to decide for ourselves who is good and who is bad. I don't think I ever read a novel like this, when you need really to make your own opinion about all the people in there, and where the plot and all the details make you, give you this freedom. So you really sometimes can think, or, you can make a decision that this woman was good and it was like a man fighting against her and she couldn't do anything. Or you can think that she was really an evil in this story and she killed her husband. You do not know. Very interesting, very intriguing, very dark and atmospheric, and I can't wait to read Rebecca. I think I want to pick it up in September, and so yeah, I'm waiting for this. Then I was reading a book that was translated in English, but I never heard anyone talking about this. I read the book in Russian. It is translated from Finnish, And this is a book by a Finnish author, and I think it's a wonderful book, like one of the best I've read in my whole life. This is popular music from Vittula by Mikael Niemi. This is coming-of-age story of young boy and his friend from very rural Finnish town, village. They are very poor life, all adventures they had, and they discovered music, rock and roll music in their lives, and how much of the impact it gave. This book is full of humor. It is rather dark. It is about very poor people, and it, you know, all the things that you can feel how poor they are. Also, there is a little bit of magical realism in it, and I just think it was wonderful. It was creepy at times, like really creepy. It was very funny. It was very engaging, and you can feel the love for the music in this book. I highly recommend. This is not a very known book, but I think it's wonderful. And the language is sarcastic and a little bit too figurative, so some scenes are not very pleasant to read. But again, I think this is a wonderful book. Then Writers and Lovers by Lily King. This book tells us about a young girl who is working as a waitress, but also she is a writer, and she is writing her first novel for a long time, and she suffers from her mother's death. She was really close with her mother, and she has a lot of grief, and it's hard to overcome this grief all by herself. Also, she has two men in her life, and choosing between these two men, also trying to understand what life she wants for herself, and also she doesn't want to left her dream. She really wants to be a writer, and she began to understand that her novel that she's working on can really be something very good, interesting. And all these complicated thoughts are very good described in this book. The characters are very compelling. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful book, wonderfully written. And I think Lily King, I now read both of her novels, Euphoria and this, and I think this is one of my favorite authors. I did not like Euphoria as much as Writers and Lovers, but her writing style is like impeccable. I really like her writing style a lot. Then, again for BookTube Prize, I read Summer by Ellie Smith. I don't want to talk about Summer here because, as well as, yes, these books are standalones, but first in Summer we meet some people from other books and from this, quartet series. And I haven't read Winter and Spring. So though I liked Summer very much, I want to speak about Autumn because I've read Autumn and then Summer, and now I want to read, I've read Autumn, now I want to read Winter, Spring, and then Summer once more, and then I can talk about all four of them. But Autumn I liked so much. I never read anything like that. I think this novel is more like a poetry than prose. The language is such a wonderful, I don't even know, this is one of my favorite things. This is one of the books that you really want to hug after you read them, if you like them, and I liked it a lot. This book tells a story about a young girl and her childhood and her nowadays, when she's, I think, in her late 20s, and her friendship, maybe even love, with a very older man who lived nearby, who was her neighbor. They talked a lot, they became real soulmates. And you know what? The plot is not the main thing of these books. I mean, the plot is there, but the main thing is the intersection of the language, of the pictures that author gave us about our world nowadays. This is a very timely novel for that year it was written in, but also about art, about history, about acceptance, about Shakespeare, about death, about life, about choice. This is a wonderful book, and it's like it is a poem. It's really hard to describe it. I really think this is a book that, I mean, I like that it is in my life right now. I can't speak about it, especially in English. I don't have words for it. But I do think that this quartet may be my favorite thing in the life. Maybe, maybe not, I'll see. But the first book was gorgeous, and I liked it so much, and I'm so thankful for it in my life right now. Then I read Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. And I think this is my favorite novel I've read this year. A lot of people talk about this novel, so I don't want to give, full synopsis or anything. This is a book telling from the side of artificial intelligence named Clara about the girl who bought her, about her life with this girl, and about a world of man as she sees it and trying to understand. This novel is very complex, very deep, very unexpected in certain ways. The only thing I want to talk about, and I saw nobody talk about this, when I read the, reviews of this book and people tell about artificial intelligence trying to live in our world, this is not our world. This is a highly, deeply dystopian world where parents have a freedom to choose to make something for their kids, for them live better life, but it has a price. And this theme about mother love, about need to make a choice for your kid and dealing with the consequences, it hurt me so much. I felt so deep for all mothers in this book. This was so interesting and so touching for me. Sometimes I have nightmares that I am one of the moms in this book. And I really think, I don't know why this topic, drives that much with me, but it did. And it became for me one of the most important books this year, for sure. And it's very light, it's light read. You feel for the Clara, she's very sweet and very kind and very loving, and in her wanting to understand the world, you see this childish, curiosity for the world. But this world is much darker place than ours. Also, I see this book like a theatrical play, when kids do something very funny and light on the stage, but there is a very dark, very creepy background. And I don't know why all the people just do not see this background, because I do think that this backstage, this background is the most important thing in this book. And yeah, I think it's a marvelous novel, Kazuo Ishiguro. It is my second book by him. I read The Remains of the Day. It was my favorite book of that year and almost one of my favorite books of all time. And Clara and the Sun is close to it, I think. Then the middle grade novel, The Wishing Spell by Colfer. This was my daughter's book that I've read, and this is just the most fun kids book I've read in few years. This is very engaging. This is a story about a brother and a sister who just fall in the books of stories, and then they found themselves in this kingdom where there is a Rapunzel and Cinderella, a Red Riding Hood, a Jack and the Beanstalk, and all of, you know, these kids heroes. And they have a quest. They need to gather some things from different kingdoms and to put them together. And there are villains there, and there are heroes there, and they have this go quest. It's very high speed, it's very engaging, it's very entertaining. I think this was one of the most fun books I've read this year. And yeah, this is a wonderful middle grade story. I'm obsessed with this series right now. Then I read Russian book Laurus by Eugene Vodolazkin. It was translated in English. I do not know about the translation though, because this book was written in old Russian language. Think like a Shakespeare time, but in Russian. And it was very hard to read because of that. But also it gave this feeling of the time and the place. And I liked it very much. This is a book about a man, first a boy, who was like, you know, I do not know English words for all of this, so I'll try to explain it like on my fingers. Do not think bad things about me. So there is a boy who lived with his grandfather at the end of the village, and his grandfather knew about plants and, you know, different things, and he can heal people. He was like a doctor. Then he died, and his grandson, so our main protagonist, he became this doctor for people. But he not only knew how to use plants, he has a power, you can say about power of God in his hands. So he could heal people with touching them and, you know, making like a miracle and healing them. And then he met a girl, and he was a cause of the death of that girl. And from that, it was like a very beginning of the book. He began this quest to become a God's man, to pray her for better life in death. So he just tried to make as much good for people as he can and be like a God weapon to heal people, to help them, but also to teach them. And it brought him in very different stages of very different life. And the choices that he made was not obvious at first. And it is like a book about person getting crazy in his loving of God and of people, and then I don't know, like being like a saint, I think. This is closer to medieval saints which did strange things and, you know, do not take food or water for a few years and nothing happened to them. This was like that. But it gave me a lot of thoughts about death, about life, about God, and about this part of Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, and how it differs from other parts of the world. I do think this is a very interesting book, and I do think this is a very Russian book. And this is one of these modern Russian books that you definitely need to read if you like Russian literature. This is This is deserve your attention, for sure. And the last book I want to talk about is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I didn't expect much about this book because I do not like magic realism. And the synopsis is that everyone is telling you. Then there is this like huge house or labyrinth with a lot of rooms and an ocean, and there are a lot of statues, and there is this strange person, Piranesi, that lives in it. And this is all true, but this book is very different from what you can picture in your head. It reads like a thriller, a mystery thriller, about a person that found himself in a very strange place, and he tries to understand why he is here, what's the purpose of it, how to get out of there. I don't know, I can't say that I like this book very much and that I didn't like this book very much, but it definitely is very memorable. And I like this thriller part when he tried to solve this mystery. I thought it was very engaging and definitely not dull at all. And it was not that magical as I thought it would be. And I'm glad for this. Also, if you know who Piranesi is, like Google, Wikipedia, this was an painter who painted the strange buildings, strange prisons of mind. And this gives you a clue for what all this book is about. Yeah, it was interesting. It was different from anything I've read. And I like this book. It was very interesting reading it. So that's it. That was my 10 best books of this part of the year. Also, it was very hard here for all of us. But there were some big changes in my life. We changed city of living, we moved to another house, of course, and my kids learned from home the whole year because California was a very closed state, and my parents got COVID, and hopefully, well, thanks God, they are fine now. It was hard, it was very challenging, but I hope that it will get better and better from now, and I hope that I can keep up with this channel. I want this very much. I don't know how I will do it and in what format and how often, but I will try to do it consistently. So see you later. Bye.